Game number 5. Hello guys and welcome to TFT EU Regional Finals Set 10, last day.
Yeah, we have not seen our players really keen with the RNG-based portals. I mean, one Drake Trainer almost got half-picked at the first game of the lobby. I mean, first game of the day, but they're not really keen towards it. They're going really safe, completed item anvil, and that's it.
These anvils, of course, can be really helpful toward one-cost reroll comps, especially comps like Yasuo that we saw Volta play earlier today, because you're able to get that third item on Yasuo earlier, and that means he can scale his AD even faster in Stage 2 and Stage 3 especially.
Yeah, and furthermore, it also kind of helps the people that are just trying to play for a win streak. Think back to how Salvi played out game number 1 and game number 2 with that Living Force. It's kind of the same concept, because some players will be trying to play for loss streaks, and they will have to pop it, and then, okay, David, you're talking about this specific situation.
What jungler, are you going to risk your tournament's current momentum on a Yasuo reroll game? We'll have to find out. With only 4 Yasuos, Volta offer the same champion.
Okay, they're both over the same champion, but with different headliner traits. Which one would you pick, Panda? True Damage or Edgelord?
I think True Damage is the easier one to play, although I've heard Edgelord is stronger in Stage 3, especially if you really want to make sure you're snowballing the Yasuo further. But with a Rod and a tier, I think it's not even on the table here for Volta. And Riven might also be somewhat hard to play for someone who we've seen enjoys it so much.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of surprised he hasn't checked his KDA pattern, just because you can check the KDA pattern. It's just like a small thing is if your gameplay just kind of identify whether or not you can go around some of the augments like stationary support, for example, that has a lot of really positioning dependent items that can drop.
Apparently, Volta's not too keen to play KDAs in this match, despite the fact that he did get the items for it, a rod and a tier. But now that we're going to be going into Stage 2 with the augments, this is where all the anvils get opened up, and this is where all these augments are going to be making a lot of sense.
Slightly awkward components there for Yeduzor. Has a chance to maybe pick a You Have My Bow and go for something like a Titan onto the Olaf, but I expect Sleight of Hand to be the option instead. He can just TG the Olaf and then find some more tank items with this second component anvil.
He could also have found a second TG, right? But he finds the Rage Blade here, David. Are we going back to Kale already? We're just like saying, you know, we're going to play Kale, and no one else is going to be able to touch it.
It's a good start for it, not locked in just yet, and we do have, I think, Rage Blade is much more flexible of an item in the last few patches, with something like a Lucian, for example, finally getting fixed in terms of how he functions and the attack speed actually scaling with his ability.
Ooh, looking at Shinar's board right now, this is considered one of the best and the strongest stars that you could have with the Lilia board. A super fan headliner on Lilia gets a 2-star quite ugly, and that's a double crown guard angle.
Triple if he wants it.
Triple maybe
right.
if he wants it. Holy moly.
I'm just saying that like Mordekaiser reroll is an option. I'm just gonna point out yet again that this is a line that you need to be open for, and I also know a lot of the people in Shinar's practice group also play different Mordekaiser reroll lines. It's a line that they are gonna be super aware of, right? But Ghost for the Spear Shogun here makes a lot more sense with the front line. Another thing that's also worth noting here is that when you look at like just Crown Guard as an item in general, we've seen Volta multiple times over the course of the weekend just slamming it 2-1 and just like without any other kind of slams.
Looking at the augments that have been picked up by our players, we see a big difference in the game plans for the Stage 2 especially. Quite a few players looking to scale into the late game, not trying to be that strong in Stage 2. We have Scapeus on Clear Mind. We have Wet Jungler on Metabolic Accelerator, going to lose HP early and hopefully bounce back in Stage 4 and 5. So there's going to be a big difference between what players are trying to play for, if it's a win streak or a lose streak in this Stage 2.
And if you're Wet Jungler, you are not happy with the itemization that you got from the completed anvil, so he decides to go with a Metabolic and looking for a head start angle at the start. He does get the Aphelios, so he was maybe fishing for a Cassandra headliner. And in a game like this, where you have a lot of options with the completed item anvil, in fact, it could be good because you do still get the carousel priority, perhaps even a set from there to make sure you have the Heart Seal applied early if you're not able to find the Cassandra or the Aphelios headliner, so he's going pretty safe as it with the start. Look at Salvi, spending every single penny already, saving nothing with scrappy inventions. You do know that he's looking for the win streak, but has been quite unlucky with it, Panda.
And for Salvi, it's kind of the opposite of the other players. He is trying to play for a win streak now, trying to have these, items complete thanks to the scrappy inventions and see what he can do. For now, has the Echo Gragas frontline with Senna maybe being an option going forward. We'll have to see what this next carousel looks like, especially. Ooh. Echo pair is expensive to hold, so I'm curious to see if Salvi's actually going to hold both the Echo and the Amumu on this bench and not make 10.
was like my first thought as well. Was like, that's a very expensive board, and that's a very expensive unit on Scapeus' board here with the Twisted Fate, with that Rage Blade already slammed, and alongside the Titan, the Starix Gauge here in the front line. This could be one of those TF80 carry lines we've been talking about.
Is that a TF on stage 2 with a Rage Blade that just came to Scapeus already? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is he going to be playing Disco and he's not going to be contested because it is a composition that isn't highly contested by nature? Yes, sir. Now we jump off to the first carousel. I think Scapeus is really happy even if he doesn't get a spat here.
You do see two Heartsteel units here that can accelerate anyone trying to play for what we've seen is the most popular comp across the entire tournament. Both the Set and the Yone are available, and both build towards item that Ezreal will want later into the game, with the IE potentially for the Ezreal with the sword, and the blue buff that Volta picked up on this Yone. Overall, talking about the TF, is this maybe finally the condition that needs to be met for Disco to do well and top 4 in a game? I guess we'll find out as Scapeus sticks to it coming to the next few stages.
Yeah, because like I kind of was kind of proposed that question as well, right? Because the thing is, a clear mind, he's going to be in a stable spot with the early TF, with the Rage Blade scaling and stuff like that. And, you know, the most important thing about TF is to get to level 8, but the big issue is that you can't really play any boards that will stabilize you, because you can't hold on to a free cost pair, for example, right? You can't really hold on to anything else along the side of that. So it's considered a very clear sacrifice, but so far, Scapeus hasn't taken huge losses for it so far.
I don't think getting a TF on the early stages of the game is going to be hard to stabilize Wizweeda. He already got his
I would disagree, Morgan. I played a tournament game a couple of weeks ago where I had TF free on 4-2 due to Recon Populator, and I went 5th. So,
okay, allow me to say, and please take it with a grain of salt.
Player diff?
You just have to do two things.
I know what's coming.
You just have to do 2 things. Get good.
I would have gone for player diff myself, but I accept get good as the second throw of shade there, Morgan.
TFT player one, right? It's just a PD.
Yeah. Player diff has been rising in the stonks the last few sets, I think, for sure, as an insult. But looking at Salvi's position here, lose streaking this stage 2. Salvi's a player that has managed to do so well with Heartsteel because he's been able to preserve a lot of HP in the early game. Stage 3 especially. Most of the times he's locked in stage 4 with 60, 70 HP. We saw that fast 9 he played in game 3, for example. So I'm curious to see if he plays for a different, maybe a reroll line, considering his current kill shot.
It's also worth noting, right, when we saw Salvi in set 7, when he came back, made his huge blast, winning GSC, going to the last chance qualifier, making sub 8, all these things. A lot of like what we kind of put together with Salvi was his free cost reroll lines, right? It was the volley bear, stuff like that he really showed how to navigate to perfection. And then also was his downfall in the LCQ with the Seraphine contest alongside Kurum, right? So he stands and falls by the tree quite often.
Okay, what is up with this lobby and his high rolls? Volta sitting on another forecast unit, a very strong frontline unit for a composition that he might be looking for, whether it is the Seraphine, according to the pumping up, which might be leading him into a real composition, or the Ahri. He already got a Blitz. And ladies and gents, that is another forecast unit at stage 2. So, can someone tell me what's happening with the rolls? It's a 2%, by the way. 2%, right? And that's another
Ahri's.
What's happening,
Dinar
man?
finds one here with
Disneyland.
double Crown Guard that can go on the Nico, can go on the Echo. We'll see if he wants to commit to this KDA line, or maybe if he finds a few Mordekaisers to consider, as you mentioned, Weeda, the Mordekaiser reroll. But we see a few players that are slightly leaning towards some variation of Pentakill, which is, I think, the biggest bane of Mordekaiser 3 not existing as an actual comp you can play for. It's just so hard to actually hit when so many players are holding at least 3 copies.
Yeah, that's like one of the real big issues about it. Actually, a lot of like different recourse lines so far to said, but you have the whole Yone thing as well with the Riven overlaps and stuff like that until people really figured out like how to play the Riven board right. It really didn't cannibalize the Yone boards, right? So interesting to see where we're going to be going with this here. Shinar could be leaning towards something like the Lulu though, right, as well. So he has multiple outs.
Did you even notice what he got from that or from the PvE round? A Seraphine and another replacement Kaisa. If he wants to put these items on the area at any given point, and he also got the Nashers. He still has a tier waiting outside as well, so he has so many options. And I think that this KDA board, or by the placement of the hexes, is also really good for the Ahri. You can put your backline completely and also shift the front line, so he has a perfect KDA board, got the perfect items. So is it really a high roll if everyone else in the lobby is having their L units as well?
Look at I'm So Fresh, has a Heartsteel angle on the bench, but for now leading towards what looks like the very flexible game plan of playing for these AP 2-cost superfan carries, the rerolls. We've seen the Senna so many times that Seraphine, he played earlier today, did not find success. I've talked about Seraphine being a comp that in the stats has looked really, really poor the first 2 days. Out of all 8 players that qualified to this day 3, only 2 players ever even played Seraphine, and they both went 8th in those games. So just not well reflected when it comes to these 8 competitors.
No, but it could be a thing with, like, we've seen this before when people made it to the top 8. Sometimes it's also about their like the lines that they're comfortable on, right? It's something that, like, for all the way back, I said we saw Solar Gazang, One Trick Saying Farms, Tan, all these players, right? It could just be one of the things of trying to default back to the old home safe one, and that just kind of being like what will make it or break it for you. But as you're talking about, David, not really working out so far.
Silver Augments next on the table, keeping rolling for days as the last option. And he knows that this board does need a roll of rerolling to be able to stabilize in stage 3, because these items are definitely placeholders. This is not going to be a Corki playstyle. But we have so many players leaning on the KDA line right now. Volta, I think, has spent all of his money in this past stage, and he does choose army building. So that is a lot of sacrificing in the early game with 2 scaling augments, pumping up and army building.
Yeah, but also keep in mind here that he's able to stay relatively healthy due to the fact he has this element. Will kind of start to get outscaled, but when you look around the lobby, there are so many people that are hawking the, like, super fan free cost frontline trios, right? You have a Nico too on the side of Dark Hydra. You also have the Echo here, so some of these units will just be heavily contested this game.
And so important with this reroll meta, and especially with a lobby with the caliber of players that we have here. This is the finals of EMEA, of course. Players, if you get to a certain reroll comp first, if you can posture you're playing this and you're not going to pivot off of it earlier than others, other players will kind of respect that decision. They normally don't want to hold hands and go 7th and 8th. We did see that, of course, a little bit in game 3 with the Lulu between Dark Hydra and Shinar. One comp that might be open that we haven't seen at all yet in this day 3 is Katarina reroll, the Crowd Diver vertical. I think it has better stats and better performance overall than things like Seraphine reroll throughout this tournament. So I'm surprised players are not trying to angle for it a bit more often.
I think it's just a little bit more narrow, right? Because I think it's one of those reroll comps that really fall
there it is.
down quite. You need, like, pretty specific items for it, right? First of all, like, it's a very awkward item set to play for most of the time if you want to play to the maximum capabilities of it. And also, if you get the country headlines that have a crowd that have a headliner, you're putting yourself pretty far back compared to the difference between, like, a KDA or a Spellweaver headline on the lines of the Seraphine.
In a position that what Jungler has right now, do you think it would actually be smart to hold that Crowd Diver Katarina? Because I think that the Morellos and the Giant Slayer was slammed a little bit too early. He still does have a tier waiting outside. Panda.
Oh, I think what Jungler's only thinking about one thing, and it is the size of his raise the stakes cash out. He is playing for, the biggest cash out possible. He's playing for that first rate playstyle with Heartsteel. He's in kind of a middle of the table currently on the standings, maybe a little bit on the lower side. Needs to mount a big comeback in the next 2 games to try and make it to Worlds again. He's, of course, our runner-up, our best ever performance from an EMEA player in so many sets, trying to make that comeback and come back in.
It's also worth noting, right, you have this, like, trio of players here with Shinar, Wet Jungler, and Volta kind of currently fighting for the 4th spot, right? Shinar is 18 points when holding it currently, and even then you go a little bit up there, you have Scapeus and Jetosaur on 20 and 19, so every single placement here, one first would just catapult you so far ahead of the pack here, and I feel like Wet Jungler knows this.
Okay, this is the first time that I ever see a spat get to survive until the last 2 get out of carousel and get actually to pick it. It is handed completely free to Shinar, who now has the option to make and slam a KDA spat and keep going with the vertical Seraphine reroll.
We've seen this position so many times before. Level 6, 40 gold, 5 Seraphines. We'll see if he's able to hit a few more of these copies naturally so he can continue scaling up to level 7, level 8 to fit in that vertical KDA, as you mentioned, Morgan, with the 7 KDA being a potential option now that he has that spatula. Looking at Scapeus, though, very early Blitzcrank as well. We're still in stage 3. He has the 2 forecast for this disco comp already.
And that's a big thing as well to note here. One of the biggest issues you can kind of run into when you're playing disco is you don't find the correct headline and then you are unable to reach out and 2-star the other focus that you need to try to go towards that level 9 here. But he even gets the option now, if he finds a TF2 and a Blitzcrank 2 earlier on, to go for a completely different headliner and play that towards level 9 here. Plenty of options for Scapeus.
He already slammed the Rage a little bit way too early into the game, and he's still stuck with the Vi. This is something that Wida just mentioned, has not been able to find the correct headliner just yet. And that Twisted Fate, I agree, it was not maybe a player diff. I'm sorry, Wida. It's going to be hard to stabilize with into stage 3. There was about 50 stacks on that TF, but the damage is just not linked.
Oh, okay.
You do have to remind, though, you have to maybe find a way to fit this TF. I think this makes sense. You're loose streaking anyway, just sell the Vi. TF, you know, get a guaranteed loss in this next round, and then potentially go 8 at 4-1, maybe 4-2 if you want to wait. We're looking at still a pretty healthy amount of HP, 72 HP to work with. So I think Scapeus still has time to fully commit into that level 8 roll down.
It's also worth noting that if he wants to hold on to a couple of different units on the PvE round coming up, he can do that. Clear Mind and Cluttered Mind only account for player combats, so if there's something that's enticing him, like a free cost player can hold on to, maybe play that as a benefit, as a placeholder, he can definitely still do that.
Worth mentioning, that actually explains why he had to sell the Twisted Fate as well. And now I'm so fresh, still uncontested with that Kale completely. Decides to go to level 7. I do not know if he's gonna commit to the Kale or not because he's just leveled to level 7 as well. But considering these items that are slammed at the moment, he's able to take another win against Scapeus and still extremely healthy. Loading for days, I think, was also used. We're not able to see if the rolls were used or not because of the overlay with the gold spent, but has he used the rolling for days or not? That is something I want to ask our spectators.
Dark Hydra picks up a free Akali on 5 Senna, so we're seeing most of these 2-cost rerollers on around 5 or 6 copies, still a little ways away from finding those 3-star upgrades, which we will expect to see at 4-1 once the rolldowns do come through. But Dark Hydra has already pre-leveled a little bit. He's going to be going 7 and rolling on 7, it looks like, for that Akali.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot for Salvi. I think that Shinar found some upgrades in the Seraphine. I'm not sure if it was a Seraphine free because the 2-star only showed up twice, I believe. So interesting to see if we can get a look at that in the short moment here. But so much economy on the bench right now for Salvi. Picked up the missing connections, right? He has so much money as you're talking about, David. And that is, in fact, the Mordecai. So with 2 copies already in play, whether you want to play this as a holdover point for level 8 or whether you want to commit to the reroll line here is something that he needs to consider. It's going to be a holdover point.
This could be Ari Sentinels.
Sentinels are, yeah, exactly.
It could be a fast 9. He finds himself stable enough with a bit of a roll down here. He is rolling on 7 and not on 8. So maybe just trying to finish off the 6 Sentinel board and trying to go fast 9 off of it.
Okay, there was a Garen in that shop, but I don't think it was the unit he was looking for. Volta also able to hit that Seraphine.
Shinar, what has he done to receive all of these contests? First it was Dark Hydra and getting through on the Lulu. Now it's Volta pivoting into the Seraphine reroll and blocking the pathway for the Turkish player.
Yeah, and he does manage to go against Scapeus, who also went to level 8 and did not really wait at all before committing to find that Twisted Fate. Able to get him a little bit early, spending every single penny despite the fact that the Seraphine composition should have done well against the TF composition. He just killed way too quickly.
And the thing is that, well, Scapeus has kind of avoided the first big crisis for playing Disco Day, right? He has the Blitzcrank headliner, he has the TF2, everything is coming up for him right now. He has to Clear Mind, pumping gold to get him to level 8, it's level 9 even, sorry. Wedge Jungle though, big cash out in the making here. Very little gold to work with, HP to work with, sorry.
Does he want the Ezreal? He doesn't want the Ezreal. Doesn't have the blue buff.
He's still rolling, looking for any of the headliners that he might be able to slam these items on. Still getting the Akalis. He's looking for that Ezra still. Only has 1 more copy to get him to 2-star if he's not headlined.
No,
yet.
Zed is so unfortunate on this roll down.
He has to go for the Zac. He's liking frontline now.
And like I said, is especially doubly unlucky, right? Because especially with this cash up being that Infinity Force, for example, right? You really will like to put that onto the set, who makes great use of those items here. But the Kane here will be a bit of a holdover point, at least for the item movement now. But the big issue, right, David, there's no healing item for the Kane.
And what Jungler took a massive risk, 21 HP, 11 loss streak. I don't think this is the board he would be happy to settle on in this 4-2 round. Facing off against Scapeus, who now has a 3-item Twisted Fate. He is level 8 with only 10 gold to work with, so still very far away from continuing to cap the disco board at level 9.
Good loss though.
Classic Blitzcrank. Oh no, not again, Blitz.
He's way stronger than the set, of course. All that disco healing is keeping him up alive, but I do have to agree that it's kind of disappointing what Jungler got from the cash outs and that full loss streak. He's 1 Kane away though.
What a shot.
2-star Kane. He decided to sell the Zac. Try to fish more and more for his units. He does get the Ezreal 2-star now. And he's even selling the Kane. He's not even gonna look to make it 2-star just yet. Relying on mainly the Zed and EDMs as some additional damage.
And something that's also worth noting here is that where Jungler has been playing these lines all day, I was watching his POV in game number 2, where he was also like mixing in, matching. He has a very good understanding of what can he kind of do to hold himself over for a while, stay stable, and then kind of make the pounds per game.
Prime so fresh. I think it's the understandable path he has to take in this game. Number 5. He's at 12 points right now in the standings. 7th place, only 1 point above Dark Hydra. He needs to go big or go home with its only 2 games left if he wants to find one of those world spots for himself. That being said, this Ezreal, I'm not sure if it's it. Shojin, Morello, Deathblade, you're on 5 Heartsteel, yes, but you only have around 50 HP to work with here.
Yeah, it's not even an angle where he can actually look to raise the stakes, because in stage 4 you're gonna be losing a lot of HP, so he is forced to take and cash out. And also, you want to make sure that you still lose, so you're able to get above the 300 mark with the 5 Heartsteel. And now that we're looking at it, there are no more spats on this Scarsel, but there is a very good looking Lucian with the spatting gloves on it right here that so many boards I've seen could use now. And of course, where Jungler runs towards it, he was looking for that Lucian to activate just so long ago.
Also, not to be like super panic stations just yet here. Salvi down at 29 HP. That's a big bummer for someone like, I'm so fresh, for someone like Dark Hydra, who kind of needs to have Salvi in the mix, stealing away points, but able to try to make a charge back for that top 4. Meanwhile, also remember that Wet Jungler has metabolic accelerator. It's why he's moving so fast, and he will continue to keep on gaining HP.
Double the Funk is online here for Scipeus, who is now on a win streak and slowly trying to ramp up to level 9. As we all know, and we've said and stated multiple times before, for Disco to really find success, you have to start fitting in these 5 cost. Ziggs, Ilaoi, and Sona are what elevate this comp to actually maybe even win lobbies if you're in a rich enough position to go to 9 early on.
Yeah, and following up on that, I mentioned so many times that Disco Twisted Fate is one of my favorite compositions. In order to make this work, Double the Funk solves the main issue of the Twisted Fate composition, that you clump units. In a board where so many players are playing Ezreal, Seraphine, this completely made Twisted Fate become absolutely disappointing in day 1 and day 2 with almost an average of 5.3. Now, Double the Funk solves that. Scipeus getting the Twisted Fate a little bit early in the game and finding the correct headliner solved almost every single issue for Twisted Fate to work this game. So if Scipeus doesn't go top 4 with the Twisted Fate in this game, I don't know what more perfect situation could you ask for to play this comp.
Big win for Wet Jungler, who was facing off against the, in theory, strongest player in the lobby, Chinar. First in the HP standings, but Wet Jungler manages to get a win. With Metabolic, Wida, he is able to now slowly get back into that 2-life zone, not just to be on 1 life going to stage 5.
Yeah, and Salvi, though, he's getting closer and closer to that 1-life zone going into the final, into the stage 5 here. And also, Shinar was in the middle of a transitional point, right? Had to pick up that Viego, trying to play that with the KDA emblem. Not necessarily finding a whole lot of success just for the moment, though, but he has enough life to work with to kind of figure out a different angle of approach.
I'm so fresh, still hasn't opened that anvil yet. He has to commit it now, because he did give away his 5 Heartsteel and is going to be a completed item anvil. None of these items are looking too good right now, except the Sterak's Gauge, which is going to be providing a little bit more frontline for his Ezreal to look. However, that is a 0-item Lucian, and his Ezreal, again, just as Panda mentioned earlier, doesn't have that much damage going on against another Ezreal with an Infinity Edge and a Giant Slayer applying so much damage with the Zac 2 Start and the Even Shroud. I'm so fresh's board, and his cash outs with the Heartsteel have not been rewarding so far.
Wet Jungler continues to get some positive feedback, a 2nd win in a row for the German player who risked so much with that massive raise of stakes, the 11 loss streak, to now finally find some amount of stability. I'm so fresh, the opposite, and Salvi also now down to 11 HP, cannot find the RE2, has rolled down on level 7, and just not there with the econ, not there with the level, not there with the upgrades on his board as well.
The issue is, like, he had the econ to go towards that level 8 instead if he wanted to, off the back off that Mordekaiser free 1, but decided to roll down, as you were talking about there, to try to find a more stable board, which I think it's safe to say right now that it has failed him.
Yeah, I remember going into stage 4, and Panda stricted heavily on the fact that he had about 50 gold, and he was so rich going into stage 4, but he didn't want to go with a vertical Sentinel RE composition, and he's not been able to find RE2 at least. If it comes, it could be a huge upgrade that would help him stabilize, and yes, I reverse cursed you. I'm going to put my PayPal in the chat, you're welcome.
Quick reminder for Salvi as well, despite having a 10-point gap over 2nd place, Yeduzor, if Salvi goes 8th here and goes 8th again in that game 6, he might be seeing the EMEA championship flip through his fingers if Yeduzor can also put up some big performances. He's currently 3rd in the standings in this game 5, so nothing is fully locked in other than just that World's participation ticket for Salvi right now.
Another fight comes in now between Dark Hydra and I'm so fresh. We've seen so many Ezreal boards right now, And Dark Hydra being the only one contesting with the Senna, if I've not been mistaken, still not able to find her at all. Still sitting on 33 gold. But that Ezreal board is not going to be reaching the Senna anytime soon. The Akali is also fully itemized. And that is not a KDA, that is a true damage Akali, wrecking nerves through. 6 true damage, able to delete I Am So Fresh's backline, immediately giving Dark Hydra more and more time to lick his wounds and rack up more economy to find that Senna 3.
And now Skipate at the top of the standings here, another one of those players that you're kind of hoping for if you're down towards the bottom half of the lobby that would kind of like not have a strong game, but it seems like after that first game of the day, Skipate has really found his stride, finding his way back into this case. We see I'm So Fresh though struggling yet again down towards the bottom of the standings. So with Salvi kind of turning his game around, David, it does seem like I'm So Fresh might be staring an eighth in the face.
Could potentially consider selling the Ezreal for the Zed and just having the Shojin onto the Jhin instead, but decides not to in the end, commits to this current board, and we might just see an elimination here. Salvi 11 HP, I'm So Fresh 7 HP, Salvi 30 points though, I'm So Fresh only 12. He needs to win this fight to keep his tournament dream alive, to try and make that World Championship. That's a huge and a very impressive set from I'm So Fresh. The Jhin still alive, still untouched on the left corner. The Ezreal as well. Looks like it should be enough with only Ahri being the main DPS for Salvi's board, and that is the case.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter for Salvi to go 8th here. He's already racked up a huge point gap between him and everyone beneath him, with about 10 massive points between him and Skipes, I think it was, at 20 points. So essentially, he is safe. He's very safe. He only got 1 point from this game though. There is a world where Skipes can get first 2 times, and Salvi could have somehow through all of that effort, but Wida, I don't think it's that likely, considering how close this lobby is.
No, and I think like we see now, Shinar, as I was talking about before, this was a transitional point for him. The Viego has been turned into a Poppy alliance a little bit more with the board here. Has those strong backlines to support it as well here. Gigasaur, one of those players really fighting to try to get a claim for that title here, can almost lock himself in for the World Championship as well if he ends up winning the game.
We'll see what this 4 big shot board can do. Can it win yet again up against Yedusaur, up against I'm So Fresh's prep partner coming into this day 3? The Jhin is being targeted by the opposing Lucian, but it's not dead just yet. It's still ramping up these violins, the turrets, shooting down units one by one, but the Lucian with a cross shot finally kills off the Jhin, and that's going to be the end of the run for I'm So Fresh, not just in this game, but in this tournament.
Yeah, quite unlucky start for I'm So Fresh. And with this round, it was even doomed a bit more. At this point, he doesn't even have a chance to qualify to top 4, sadly, because going out early might not be the best idea, but Hydra is able to get his hand on another KDA spat. If he's able to reach it to level 9, we might see another 10 KDA vertically. But considering his board situation, won't be coming anytime soon because he's playing the Senna anyways. He denies it, in fact, from Shinar. My bad.
And Shinar with a second KDA emblem, Moodle could have possibly reached that 10 KDA we saw from someone like Zaul in that day 1 of this tournament as well, which is, we know, is one of those huge vertical spikes when it comes to prismatic traits that can really put you into a first place position.
No way.
It is such a powerful situation here, but again, the real issue, the real like sadness here for Dark Hydra is that lack of that Senna free showing up here. And remember, Dark Hydra, due to the fact he's taken 3 8s in a row here, started the day off on fire, would need to win both of the remaining games so there's even given a shot of qualification.
Quite unlucky for Dark Hydra, David, but living for one more run might be crucial for him to be able to get that Senna 3 finally, but does he make it against that Ezreal board?
The German showdown, this could be the last fight that Dark Hydra will have the pleasure of witnessing in this game number 5. The Senna is still 2-star. It's really Akali doing most of the work, but she's being targeted now. The Ezreal hits both carries. Can he do it by himself? It might be close, but not quite there yet. What jungler now also taken down, and both players on 1 life.
Huge win. He would have needed this one in order to be able to maybe find the Kiana or the Senna, which is a core unit of his build so far. Shinar is also getting a massive loss because of the lack of backline access in that Ahri comp, which is something that the Discord EF does have pretty easily.
It's worth noting, right, because as we were talking about, David, speaking about Skipes' position, right, the fact that he was able to kind of hit his TF and his Blitzcrank so early on, they didn't even have to give up any value on that cluttered mine, just catapulting him towards level 9. Like, he might even be close to level 10 at this point.
With a 5.5 average across the first 2 days, we wrote off Disco as a comp you cannot play, but now we have a more decisive answer. If you high roll a TF in stage 2 and a second TF in stage 3 alongside a Blitzcrank, you might just be able to top 4 Skippe's still win streak coming into the end of this stage 5.
And of course, you forgot one very important thing, the double the funk. He's able to get away from all these clump damages coming in from the Ezreal boards and the Lucians reaching out to him through his front line. Getting a lot of pulses, one after another, keeping him alive, but however, this is now the fight between Judosaur and Wed Jungler. He's on 20 points, he needs to win this fight in order
Oh,
to
it's so
chance.
close!
And he does
He's
take
still
it, Wed
alive.
Jungler doesn't go out though, still alive on 3 HP, even if he takes some delayed damage, he's still safe to survive to stage 6.
Can he find an upgrade here? Can he find some gold from this cash out? We'll see what's going to be a Reforger, an Obsidian Cleaver. But the most important thing here will be, 1, a final item on the Lucian. 2, the Lucian 2 upgrade. Could be the decisive factor to have that trio carry between Zed, Ezreal, and the Lucian.
You would have liked to see a duplicator, right? Would have been an absolutely huge one as well, but this is okay. Like, the Randuin's Omen instead here is definitely something that can help his position get more durability onto these very important frontliners. But that win would have been so important for Wed Jungler, really helping out in stage 6 because of the fact of the metabolic accelerator. But he stays alive on 5 HP.
There's the 3%, either Lucian or Lawi. Both of them could be huge upgrades. I'm not sure if rolling the Obsidian Cleaver was a good idea, because you do need some sort of armor penetration. He doesn't have any other so far except the Even Shroud, and if the Zag dies, you don't have that. But going for the roll was a high risk, high reward move, and he does get the Randuins. So he has a very strong front line now, but the question is, David, is it strong enough to get him a win against Skepeus' board now? He is doomed to face him. If you look at the right, with that overlay, he's facing the strongest board in the lobby.
Skepeus has already dumped all his gold into going level 10, so he hit him right after he's hit his biggest spike. The Alawi finally walks up. The Lucian trying to chew through this Blitzcrank, but it seems like it's just too tanky. The Rage Blade continuing to scale for the TF, but the TF one shot by the Ezreal, and that should win the fight for Wed Jungler. He survives for at least one more round. He's trying to mount this comeback.
Yeah, and this is just, again, this is one of the best matchups for Wed Jungler, especially in the long run. Just even with the double the funk, just the nature of the way Ezreal spreads out the damage here, it is such a difficult thing to keep that TF alive, and it gets one shot, especially with the triple damage that the Wed Jungler has here. There's no mana gain item on this Ezreal.
It is now either him or Dark Hydra that could be leaving the next round, unless Shinar takes a massive loss here. Losing 19 HP in one round isn't really likely. But he's still one Senna away. Going into stage 6, not finding a 2-star carry 3-star is such a massively sad position to be if you were Dark Hydra.
We'll see if the Senna can target onto a big clump. Going to target onto just a tentacle for now, but then maybe can hit this big frontline clump. Wed Jungler versus Dark Hydra once again. Both Germans need a big result in this game 5 to claw back in to try and secure a spot at the World Championship. Of course, Wed Jungler is at 17 points, 5 ahead of Dark Hydra, and this is not looking good. The Senna 2 will not be able to do enough. Dark Hydra, I think, overall, we all know his skill as a player, just not his day when it comes to TFT.
Not a big loss here for Shinar as well. He stays in the game, but just ever so barely. And keep in mind, Shinar is currently 1 point ahead of Wed Jungler here. And someone like Jejusaur as well in that mix here. So we have right now 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in the overall standings in the top 4. Jejusaur here now with this win potentially could open up the back door we talked about before to snatch away Salvi's title.
Yep. And I'm sensing it. I'm sensing it. If Judosaur is able to get a win, he's only going to be 3 points away from Salvi. So the next game is really going to be a contest between them both. But now, he has to worry more about Skepeus, who has gone to level 10, maximizing his board capacity and power, David.
See what the Lucian can do here. The Gunblade, the Rage Blade, especially stacking as this fight goes on. The Akali in the front line. The TG rolls are not ideal with the Rabadons and the Crown Guard, but we'll see if she can do enough damage to the front line to allow Lucian to close things out later on to the fight. The TF also scaling the Rage Blade, but it seems like Lucian is just too much to handle after those buffs came through. He's the absolute star of the show in most of these late game boards.
Get the Carousel Weeda.
You have no premium emblems, right? I was looking at the emblems at first here. There's not like a disco emblem for Skepeus. It means you can cut out of one of the bad disco units, for example, right? There wasn't anything else here for Wed Jungler either, really. The bit of extra frontline for that allowing is going to be absolutely massive, though. Double Stone Plate could be very nice. Now, he also had that fully equipped already, but again, he doesn't have the economy to go level 9, even with the continuous reuses from this Heartsteel.
Doesn't have the HP either. He knows he has to try and fish for this Lucian 2 on 8, and he's been rolling for it, donkey rolling really the entirety of the last almost 2 stages at this point.
Yeah, I expected a Jazz Emblem and maybe Divine Intervention that gets Judasaur here and all to be able to win. But his board is looking pretty stacked. And if he can win against Scipeus, I don't think that him facing with Jungler now is going to be any issue for him. However, it is a ghost fight that he goes against. So apparently, he goes against Scipeus twice in a row. Is it unlucky for Scipeus? It isn't lucky enough for Judasaur. He might be even looking at a double knockout here. The double the Funk, and with the TF being positioned on the other side of the Lucian is going to buy him much more time this time. However, no one is able to reach this Jhin. No one is able to put the damage on the Lucian. The Gunblade is keeping him alive. The Giant Slayer wrecks through the front line, but maybe this fight is looking way closer now with the World to make it, and the Twisted Fate getting to cast on Judasaur. It was all about positioning, and him putting on the same side of the Lucian is what gave him the saving grace for this fight.
But also, like, that's a 6-2 on the side from Scipeus now as well. We can see that Wet Jungler beat the Ghost board, but as we've talked about so many times before, it is a Ghost board. And with Wet Jungler donkey rolling for that, allow it to fall Illusion too. Will that allow it to in the front line for Judasaur here will be a big hit in the face for Wet Jungler, but he just gotta stay persistent.
And the showdowns of the Lucian to maybe decide what the top two will look like in this game. Number 5, Wet Jungler's looking for that first, but still on Lucian 1. We'll see now the battle here. The Alawi, the front line just looks so much better, and the TG rolls on Akali so much better for this fight. Guard Breaker and the blue buff allowing her to cast as often as possible to melt this front line while Lucian clears from the back line. All of a sudden, Wet Jungler's board has already been deleted. Akali's onto the Lucian. The Ezreal is half health, and the Jhin is still stacking those violins. A very lopsided fight here. Wet Jungler down in 3rd place, still in contention for those top 4 spots coming into Game 6, though.
Yeah, the issue though, right? The issue for Wet Jungler, right, in reality is that despite all the effort he went through this game, he really did not create a bigger gap to someone like Shinar, right? At first place here would have put him in a much safer position. He still has to play all out in that last game for that top 4 spot, whereas someone like Scipeus, someone like Judasaur really are going to be in a spot of a little bit of a safer spot and kind of keep their eyes peeled, potentially even challenging for the title, depending on how Salvi pans out in the final game.
Okay, so judging by the current positioning of this, again, if you just tuned in, this is game number 5.
Alawi 2
Judasaur is now sitting on 20 points. He does get the RA2 as well here, so Scipeus gets some sort of upgrade. But the question here is, again, we mentioned so many times that if he wins this one, he's going to be just 3 points away. The Jhin 2 upgrade also comes in. Stars are aligning for Judasaur. If he takes the win in this lobby, there could be a potential room for him to be the EMEA champion, David. And it's the final fight. Both of them are 1 life away. This is it.
1 5-cost upgrade for either board. No blue buff for Shojin, unfortunately, from that Anvil, potentially for that Jhin. It was not found. We'll see now the TF could be targeted by the Lucian if this front line melts quickly enough. We'll see where the Thresh cast goes. Can the Thresh stun those backline carries? Only stuns the Misfortune. Lucian and Jhin untouched. On that top right corner, the TF slowly stacking the Rage Blade, trying to chew through the front line. Which will melt first? The Thresh is down. The TF is being targeted. It's almost done, but the Blitz, as usual, coming in for the 1-2 punch. A big enough hit on Judasaur, and that's Scipeus taking the win with Disco of all comps.